The mother-in-law's milestone celebration was anticipated to be a lavish affair, attended by a large contingent of family and friends. The young bride sat patiently at the festive table until she felt unwell and excused herself to the restroom. However, she did not return. Her mother-in-law shrieked, "Where is your wife? Who is going to foot the bill?" The guests exchanged bewildered glances. The groom attempted to call her, but her phone remained silent. The joyous occasion devolved into an acrimonious dispute. At 2 o'clock in the morning, an incensed group stormed into the newlyweds' apartment. "Hello, dear listeners. It's a pleasure to welcome you to my channel. I have a new, captivating story for you. Enjoy." Marina learned to plaster a smile over her aching teeth by the 3rd month of her shared life with Igor. It was then that his mother, Lydia Borisovna, decided to drop by unannounced and stayed for dinner, then breakfast and then lunch. The keys to their apartment resided in her handbag, nestled beside her compact, and a daily updated list of grievances against her daughter-in-law. "Marinka, why haven't you seasoned the soup?" the mother-in-law would remark with a grimace. "Igorok here is accustomed to proper meals." Igor, meanwhile, remained engrossed in his phone, silent. Marina would add salt, force a smile, and endure. She worked as a nurse at a clinic, earning 38,000. Igor was a 45-year-old manager at a construction firm, a dredger, as he called it. They rented a small one-bedroom apartment for 22,000, and each month became an unsolvable mathematical equation. Lydia Borisovna worked in an archive, but her salary was never discussed. Instead, she relished recounting the hardships of her solitary existence. "My pension is meager. I can barely cover the utility bills," she would sigh as Igor handed her an envelope yet again. "My dear son, you are my only child. Who else will look after your mother?" Marina mentally calculated 10,000 plus the groceries his mother regularly borrowed from their refrigerator, allegedly temporarily, minus another 5. She attempted to discuss this with Igor, but he brushed her off. "Come on, she's my mother. Life is difficult for her." Lydia Borisovna always appeared at the most inopportune moments. When they planned an evening at the cinema, she would call, gasping, "Igorok, I'm not feeling well. Come over." They would rush across town, only to find their mother-in-law in a bathrobe, flushed, with a glass of wine. "Oh, I'm feeling better now. It must have been a sudden spike in blood pressure. Sit down, have some tea." When Marina attempted to prepare something special, her mother-in-law seemed to sense it intuitively, arriving unannounced, using her own keys to unlock the door. She would then proceed to criticize, "The meat is overcooked. The potatoes are underdone. You should have used a different variety. I always prepared the borscht differently," she'd say, taking the frying pan. "Let me handle it." Igor would smile. "Mom, you're as usual." And he would eat the re-prepared meal with gusto. Marina would sit, staring at her plate, feeling something inside her slowly turn to stone. In the winter, her mother-in-law fell ill. Nothing serious, just a common cold, but she magnified it into a catastrophe of cosmic proportions. For 2 weeks, Igor traveled to her place every evening, bringing medicine and groceries. Marina offered to accompany him, but Lydia Borisovna refused. "No need, dear Marina. You're already tired from work. Igorok can manage himself." And she would add, in a lowered voice, audible to Marina, "My sweet boy, it's good that you're so caring, unlike some others." March proved to be particularly challenging. Marina's salary was delayed, utilities needed to be paid, and Igor had once again given his mother money for some urgent medication. When Marina tried to express her outrage, he flared up, "Do you want my mother to die?" "I want us to be able to live a normal life," she cried. "We're barely making ends meet ourselves." "She's my mother," Igor stated firmly, "and I will help her, whether you like it or not." Marina fell silent. That night they went to bed on opposite sides of the mattress, their backs turned to each other. April, May, Lydia Borisovna escalated her demands. Now she visited not just for casual drop-ins, but with specific objectives. "Marinka, your washing machine is better. Could you wash my curtains?" Or, "I need the vacuum cleaner. My back hurts." Or, Could you prepare lunch for a few days in advance? Igorok, tell your wife to help her mother. Marina obliged, washing, ironing, cooking, and packing meals into containers. Lydia Borisovna would depart with full bags, not even offering a thank you. A couple of days later, she would call, Marinochka, could you make that borscht again? It seems a bit too salty this time. One June evening, as her mother-in-law was once again seated on their sofa, criticizing their new wallpaper. What a color! It's like a hospital. Marina felt like she was suffocating. She stood up, walked onto the balcony, closed the door behind her, and simply stood there, clutching the railing. Below, the city buzzed, lights twinkled in other buildings where other people lived with their own problems. Perhaps they also have vampire mothers-in-law, she thought, a wry smile forming through her gathering tears. Igor followed her out and put his arm around her shoulders. Don't worry, Mom will leave soon. Igor, we need to talk, Marina said softly. We need to have a serious conversation about boundaries about our lives. Later, let's talk later. He kissed her on the forehead. Not in front of Mom, ever. Always later. But later never came. At the end of July, Lydia Borisovna announced her upcoming 55th birthday in August, which she intended to celebrate in grand style at a restaurant. I'm only turning 55 once in my life, she declared, beaming. Igorok, you'll help me organize it. And Marina should also participate. Participate meant one thing. Pay. Igor looked at his mother with adoring eyes. Of course, Mom. We'll arrange everything. Right, Marina? Marina nodded. What else could she do? The following 3 weeks were a whirlwind. Lydia Borisovna called daily with endless specifications. Which restaurant? What menu? How many guests? What flowers? What kind of cake? Marina was torn between her job and orchestrating this celebration. Igor offered assistance, but his contributions were limited to phrases like, Mom, Marina will handle it, or Marina, you're the smart one. The restaurant cost 150,000. They didn't have that kind of money. Igor took out a loan. Marina borrowed from her parents. Lydia Borisovna graciously approved their choice of venue and menu, but chided them, well, you could have found something better, but it's acceptable. On August 9th, the day of her birthday, Marina woke up with a migraine. Her head throbbed so intensely she wished the ground would swallow her. But the party was paid for, the guests invited. There was no turning back. They arrived at the restaurant at 6 in the evening. Lydia Borisovna presided over the head table in a new dress, also purchased with their money, accepting congratulations. Guests trickled in. Her colleagues, distant relatives, neighbors, former classmates. Around 30 people, no less. Marina sat beside Igor, offering a strained smile. The migraine worsened with every passing minute. The chandeliers blinded her. The music pounded in her head. Voices blurred into an unintelligible din. Marinka, why are you so pale? Igor asked. My head hurts. Just bear with it for a while, okay? He patted her hand. For Mom's sake, always for Mom's sake. At 7:30, when the guests had imbibed freely and were in high spirits, and Lydia Borisovna was delivering yet another toast, mentioning her beloved son, no gratitude was expressed towards her daughter-in-law, of course, Marina realized she would either scream or faint. She quietly stood up, nodded to Igor, indicating she needed the restroom, and exited the hall. The corridor was empty and cool. Marina leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. Her head spun and nausea twisted her stomach. She made her way to the restroom, splashed cold water on her face, and looked in the mirror. Her reflection was frightening. A sallow face, red eyes, and gaunt cheeks. When had she last slept soundly, eaten properly, smiled genuinely? What am I doing here? She asked her reflection. Suddenly, everything became clear. Marina took out her phone, called a taxi, and sent Igor a brief message. I feel very unwell. I've gone home. Sorry. She silenced her phone and exited through the service entrance to the street. The taxi arrived in 5 minutes. The driver inquired if everything was all right, as her appearance clearly suggested otherwise. Marina nodded and urged him to drive faster. At home, She took a pill, lay down in the darkness on the bed, and for the first time in weeks felt a sense of relief. Silence, peace. No voices, no demands, no reproaches. She didn't dwell on what would happen next. She simply lay there and breathed. Time passed. An hour, 2. Her phone buzzed incessantly with calls and messages. Marina didn't answer. She knew what was unfolding there. Her mother-in-law was having hysterics. Igor was trying to placate everyone. Guests were whispering and exchanging glances. "Where is your wife?" Around 2 in the morning, the door burst open with a bang. Igor and Lydia Borisovna stumbled into the apartment, both drunk, agitated, and ready for a confrontation. "Marina!" Igor roared, fumbling in the dark. "Where are you?" Lydia Borisovna shrieked something about a shameless girl and disgracing the entire restaurant. Igor reached the light switch and flicked it on. The sudden glare made him flinch. "What's wrong with you?" Marina was sitting on the bed. She wasn't crying or shouting, just sitting. But in those few hours, something within her had irrevocably broken, and it was reflected on her face. Vacant, glassy eyes, distorted features, a strange, crooked smile. In her hands, she held a partially packed suitcase. "What are you doing?" Igor stammered. Marina looked at him, then at her mother-in-law, and let out a quiet, almost soundless laugh. "I'm leaving," she said in a calm, steady voice. "It's enough. I'm leaving." "How can you leave?" Lydia Borisovna stepped forward. "You abandoned us at the restaurant. The bill isn't fully paid. All the guests were waiting. I was disgraced." "The bill," Marina repeated. "Yes, the bill." She stood up, walked to the bedside table, pulled out a stack of papers, and handed them to Igor. "Here, I've calculated. Over the past year, your mother has cost us 212,000. That's without the birthday celebration. Including the celebration, it's 362,000, and you spent money on a gift for my birthday." Igor stared at the papers, growing paler. "Marina, what does this have to do with anything?" "It has everything to do with the fact that I will no longer do this," she interrupted. "I will not live for someone who doesn't value me, my money, or my time. I will not smile when I am humiliated. I will not tolerate it." "How dare you!" Lydia Borisovna shrieked. "I am his mother." Marina turned to her. "You are a selfish person, draining your son of everything you can, and you were draining me too. But enough is enough." Her mother-in-law gasped in indignation and raised her hand as if to strike or shove. Marina intercepted her arm, squeezing it tightly. "Don't," she said very quietly. "Don't make things worse." There was something in her voice that made Lydia Borisovna recoil. "Igor," Marina turned to her husband, "I'm going to my parents' place. We'll get a divorce. I don't want to share the apartment, the money, anything. Just let me go and live your lives with your mommy." "Marinka, wait." Igor's voice trembled. "We can talk. We can resolve this." "No, it's no longer possible." She zipped up her suitcase, grabbed her jacket, and walked past them both to the door. "Wait!" Lydia Borisovna cried. "Who's going to pay the rest at the restaurant?" Marina turned around. The birthday girl, as it should be, and walked out. Behind her, a scream erupted. Lydia Borisovna sobbed. Igor shouted something, but Marina no longer heard. She descended the stairs, and with each step she felt lighter, easier to breathe, easier to think, easier to live. Her parents met her with silence, no questions asked. Her mother hugged her, led her to her old room, and tucked her in, just like when she was a child. Marina fell asleep instantly, a deep, sound slumber without dreams. The divorce was finalized quickly. Igor offered no resistance, evidently realizing he had nothing more to lose. Marina found a job at a different clinic, closer to her parents' home. She rented a small studio apartment and began seeing a psychologist to sort through the wreckage. One December day, while standing in line at a supermarket, she heard a familiar voice. She turned. It was Lydia Borisovna, looking older, thinner, in a faded jacket. She was rummaging through her wallet, trying to scrape together enough for bread and milk. 30 rubles short, the cashier said. Just a moment, just a moment. Her mother-in-law frantically emptied her pockets of loose change. Marina looked at her. There was no anger, no pity, just emptiness. She took out a banknote and handed it to the cashier. "Add this from me." Lydia Borisovna lifted her head, recognized her, and turned pale. "Marina, goodbye," Marina said and turned away. Outside it was freezing. Snow crunched under her feet. The air smelled of winter and freedom. Marina walked to the bus stop, heading towards her small, cramped but cherished home, and she smiled. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. A message from Igor. "Mom is sick. I'm short on money for medicine. Could you?" Marina deleted the message without reading it to the end, blocked the number, and didn't look back.